It's clear that one major option Nigeria has to develop its airports and deploy state-of-the-art equipment and technology-based facilitation utilities is to attract external or local funding from investors. But plans to do this through a proposed airport concessioning is not going down with the unions that represent the over 5,000 workers of the Federal Airport Authority of Nigeria. That's because the workers doubt the sincerity of government's plans. On the program, we'll take a look at this contentious issue once more. Plus, Lufthansa and KLM Air France are now back to Nigeria. That's our sneak preview. A warm welcome to Aviation this week on Channels Television. I'm Bukola Jo Oketumbi. The concession of airports in Nigeria has had a long history, and over the years, attempts have been made to bring in private investors to inject money into airport development, but labor unions in the industry have always opposed it. Now that the issue is rearing its head again, the unions say the manner in which the Minister of Aviation, Senator Hadi Sirika, is going about the proposed concessioning of some of the country's major airports is not in their best interest.
Airports has a lot of problems. And we propose solutions. We say we are not saying don't do concession, but we give him options. We said, why don't you cooperatize fund? Float fund into the capital market. Fund can generate its fund to run the affairs of this airport. We have the capacity and manpower to manage these facilities to world-class standard.
We have 22 airports in Nigeria. 4 are viable. These 4 that are viable, most especially Lagos, what we generate there is what we use to pay the whole staff of the 22 airports. Now you want to single out the viable ones, which are the 4 major airports they are talking about: Abuja, Lagos, and Kano, and Port Harcourt. You want to concession those ones where the resources comes. And you said fund remains. Please, gentlemen, where is the transparency?
While this controversy rages, the only successful terminal concession is that of the 13-year-old Muritala Mohammed Airport 2, which was designed as a build, operate and transfer project. This airport itself has had its fair share of trouble, sometimes legal, between the Federal Airport Authority and operators of the terminal by Qantas Aviation Services. Over the years, industry experts have alleged that the major problem with attempts to concession the airports have to do with the fact that those who want to midwife the program are not ready for a transparent process. For an aviation stakeholder, the fear of the workers is justified.
If you look at the case of Nigeria Airways, what happened to the workers was very bad after the liquidation of the airline. But under this experiment, I want to trust and I want to believe that the workers concerned would be well handled by the commission. What happens to the workers after? What happens to the workers during? And what happens even before? Where to start will be to access the situation of the workers. How many do they have? The fears of the workers are justified because sanctity of contracts in the past has not been very good. How should the process go? ICRC has laid down process.
Beyond the fears, he believes that the Infrastructure Concession Regulation Commission should be allowed to do its job.
It's the right way to go. We all know that when private people do things, it is cheaper, it is more efficient than when government does it. Governments have been doing it, and in their wisdom, they are ready to give it to private hands. Public infrastructure development to private. And government is doing public-private partnership in 50 key areas, 3 only or 4 in aviation. I'm not mouthpiece for government, but I think it's the right way to go.
While the RCRC has been charged to do a good job, there are still questions begging answers. Will the airports be concessioned along the new Chinese terminals that have just been built in their vicinity? Who pays off the loans that build the Chinese terminals, government or the new airport owners, if the concession sails through?
because now we fly into every single airport in Nigeria, and we have just recently opened all of the airports in Nigeria, including those that are not owned by government. I would say that the activity around those airports is not as smooth as it ought to be, but substantially also is good enough to go. Bearing in mind that since the Buhari administration in 2015, aviation has grown, like I said earlier on. Even the number of airports have grown since then. We have an airport in Nasarawa, for example, that is very active. Recently, we have bring back activity in Akure. There are daily flights in Akure, in fact twice. 2 or 3 airlines go into Akure and out. We have airports in Yobe, new one since Buhari came in, where airports coming on in Abakaliki. There's an airport coming on in Benue. There's airport coming all over the place in Ekiti. Airports are being built these days in Abuja. We have added about 10 to 11 airports since Buhari took over from the 22 that we had in Nigeria. Now we have over 30 airports. So I believe that the sector is growing, but all of these airports that we're going in and out of recently we've developed protocols for them. Concession, we are on with it. We've gone very, very far and advanced. Currently, we're about to go to market. We have begun by meeting the idea, and a lot of questions have come up. We had a transaction advisor who has finished his transaction advisory services, has given us the outline business case. We've sent the outline business case to ICRC. And once ICRC gives us the certificate for compliance, we come back and go to market. And what we did that is unique was, according to the ICRC Act, we should establish a project steering committee and project delivery team. Now, in the Act and in the law and in the convention of ICRC, labor has not been factored. But with the fiat by me, and for fairness and for transparency, I asked that labor be involved in the delivery team, which is the real engine for all of this concession. And they were so included. We put, in a 17-member team, we put 2 that are from the union. And by the way, this has the Attorney General of the Federation, has the Minister for Finance, Budget, National Planning, has all of these people in it, and plus ourselves. So we've done that. Where we are at the moment, there has been a lot of misconception and talks, which I will address in future. First and foremost, people need to know that this is a terminal concession. And we were trying to pick which model, what do we do, which one do we pick, arising from the outline business case. How are we going to go ahead? So that was why we didn't answer some of the questions. But now that the business case has come out, we've chosen to do terminal concession, and that is what we're doing. And we've told Labour there will not be any job loss at all. And I think we are compassionate enough as government under President Muhammadu Buhari that we should be trusted by Labour up to the time when we would go to market and they would see that there wouldn't be any job loss. And the reason why I say we're compassionate, when President Obasanjo wanted to kill Nigeria Airways, he didn't give anybody notice. He didn't negotiate with any Labour. He went there, put lock and key with the police and tear gas everybody, and they left. And for 10 years, nobody was paid his entitlement from this Labour. We came in, we said, no, this is wrong. It's bad enough that we don't have the airline.
It's day 1 of the 3-day public hearing on 6 aviation sector bills by the House of Representatives Committee on Aviation. The Speaker of the House, in declaring the hearing open, observes the absence of critical stakeholders.
First of all, the stakeholders don't show up from the private sector. And at the end of the public hearing, when the bill is about to be passed into law, or after it has been passed into law, then we begin to hear a lot of hue and cry. And as you can see now, not a single person from the private sector is here.
The NLC, in stating its position, is worried about classifying the aviation sector as an essential service provider.
60 years ago, under a democratic government, the first laws that Nigeria as a government, as a sovereign, adopted and ratified and domesticated is those conventions. Those provisions are clear provision in our labor law. And therefore, aviation sector does not fall under this category. It said armed forces, police is clearly stated in the labor law.
The NLC president was also at the Senate hearing on the 6 bills, where he warned against playing into the hands of the private sector, whom he claims is pushing for the concessioning of the nation's airports.
The attempt to replace authority with administration can only suggest an attempt to remove the management of our airports from possibly government control and ownership by the people. This rhythm with the latest tune by the promoters of concessioning of our prime airports, the changes of the name FAN as part of the demand by their private sector collaborators will make it easier for them to consummate the concessional agenda, a sinister plot that this House or this hollow chamber has tried to oppose and condemn because it's going to throw many Nigerian workers into the unemployment market.
The bills are expected to help deliver effective and efficient civil aviation acts for the country and bring aviation operations in tandem with global best practices.
Lufthansa, Air France and KLM have now been given approval to operate international flights into Nigeria. The Minister of Aviation, Hadi Sirika, in a tweet, said Qatar Airways has also been granted approval to resume flights to Abuja. The minister also hinted at the possibility of the Malam Aminu Kano International Airport, Port Harcourt International Airport and Enugu Airport accommodating foreign travelers before the year ends. In September, the Nigerian government barred some airlines from entering the West African nation as it resumed international flights. The tweet reads, "We're working with the Ministry of Health, CACOVID and the PTF to open Kano, Port Harcourt and possibly Enugu airports before the end of the year. Also, Lufthansa, Air France, KLM have been given go-ahead to resume. Qatar Airways is approved to start Abuja. Thank you for your patience." Still on travel, a travel agent has been sharing the experience of border closures, which meant reporting zero revenue since the pandemic began and some having to pay back fees for cancelled holidays. She adds that business is lower in volume and travelers are not even eager to go on international trips. She begins by bringing us up to speed about new requirements for United Arab Emirates.
They recognize that Nigeria is a country you cannot toy with. They are giving visas to Nigerians, but there are requirements. So if you meet up with the requirements, one of the requirements is that you must have a hotel to stay. You must have a return flight ticket, and you must have insurance, and you must have a PCR test, which is negative. You understand? So if you meet up with all those requirements, you get your visa. It's as easy as ABC. They are even issuing it through Nigerian office here as well. So that one, the visa thing is not a problem. It's only that people don't like doing what is right. You follow a process. This is the requirement. You follow it and you are good to go. If airline sells an aircraft, they'll put another aircraft and start selling. They'll put another aircraft and start selling. You understand what I'm saying? But individuals and passengers make money for airlines because of that fire brigade. So when you don't book early, the small one they have, they triple the cost, and that's what you pay.
Welcome back. Airports across Europe scale up their testing for COVID-19 in the midst of the pandemic. Let's start from Germany. That's on our special reports.
To ensure that travel is safe in the COVID-19 season, German airline Lufthansa started trialing rapid pre-flight coronavirus antigen tests on selected flights between Munich and Hamburg, which passengers will need to pass in order to fly. Only those testing negative or able to provide evidence of a negative test within the previous 48 hours will be allowed to board the test flights. The test itself takes 15 minutes, and passengers have been asked to arrive at the airport early to be processed. Even with a 100% negative, plane passengers will still have to adhere to safety regulations like face masks. Passengers on the first trial flight out of Munich were positive about Lufthansa's trial.
Das Angebot ist okay.
The offer is okay. Lufthansa has kept us informed. I got a call saying I should get to the airport a bit earlier as tests were being carried out. And when you get a negative result and know that the other passengers are also negative, then it is a good feeling in the plane.
Lufthansa, which also tests its own cabin crew and pilots using the litmus test cartridges, will use the test for 2 daily flights between Munich and Hamburg to see how the test procedure can be included in the pre-flight routine.
You can see
the test cartridge here with filter paper. And this is where the sample goes, which is then sucked in by the capillary force. If a line appears at the C, then the test has worked, as that is the control line. And if a line was to appear at the T, then the test will be positive. It can be read anywhere between 15 and 30 minutes before the color fades.
The pandemic has pushed the global aviation industry into its worst crisis, and a recovery to 2019 levels is not expected before 2025. Antigen tests give results much faster than the widely used PCR swab tests, which are done in a laboratory but can be less reliable. Lufthansa passengers willing to take this trial will receive the test free of charge. Now to Spain, which is one of Europe's main COVID-19 hotspots. The country from November the 23rd will be demanding a negative coronavirus test taken within 72 hours for air travelers arriving from countries with a high risk of contracting COVID-19. The latest measure was added to an array of internal restrictions designed to battle coronavirus. Spain will now use European Union's criteria to define which countries are classified as high risk and require test certificates in Spanish or English at airports. Health Minister Salvador Illa says the rule would apply to non-EU countries with more than 150 cases per 100,000 people over the past 14 days.
The world's third oldest airline, Australia's Qantas Airways, has marked its 100th birthday with a low-level flyover of Sydney's famous harbour at sunset. The 100-minute flight flew 100 employees as well as frequent flyers and passed right above Sydney Harbour Bridge, which had a birthday candle projected onto one of its pylons.
I forget about all the news.
The airline, founded in Australia's outback as Queensland and Northern Territory Aerial Services Limited's Qantas in 1920, is the world's third oldest operating carrier behind Dutch airline KLM and Colombia's Avianca Holdings.
So we're very proud of what it's done over the 100 years, and it's seen a lot of challenges in that time. It's gone through the Second World War, the Great Depression. It's gone through amazing changes in Australia over the years. It's gone through crises like the global financial crisis and September the 11th. This is the toughest year we've had in our history, in our 100th year, and I think Qantas will get through this. We'll looking up to the future, and will be strong as ever once we get to the other end, because of its brand, because of its people, and because of that amazing history.
The chief executive of Qantas, Alan Joyce, said at a birthday event that 2020 is its toughest year due to the coronavirus pandemic.
I mean, it's easy for a lot of the unions to criticise what's going on. This has been really tough to try and get the company through this period of time.
At the start of the year, the airline had been in a strong financial position but has since announced cuts to nearly 30% of its workforce and grounded the bulk of its fleet. It doesn't expect a return to most international travel until the second half of 2021 as Australia's borders remain largely closed. On our final stretch, we'll bring you a feature where a former pilot now takes to selling food.
Every morning, Malaysian aircraft pilot Azrin Mohammed Zawawi dons his white captain's uniform and hat before heading to work. Not at the airport, but to a small noodle stall that he now runs in a suburb just outside the capital, Kuala Lumpur. His previous employer, Malindo Air, earlier this month announced that it had launched a retrenchment exercise affecting over 2,000 workers, including him. Deprived of a regular income, the father of four decided to start a food business a few weeks ago, selling Malaysian dishes at a small food stall that he has named Captain's Corner.
I need some income because I was retrenched by my previous company, and I planned with my wife, what should I do? I need to do something. So when I asked my wife and my mother-in-law and my father also, they told me, why don't we go for food business?
The business caught the attention of the Malaysian public after Azrin was photographed wearing his captain's uniform under a red apron, an image that quickly went viral on social media.
And after everything completed, and I told my wife, why don't you take my picture and we just post it in the Facebook to show to our friends that this will be my last wearing the pilot uniform. So okay, and then after I took a few pictures and we posted inside our Facebook, WhatsApp group, and we are shocked because it went viral very fast.
Still, customers say the business venture is more than just a gimmick.
The main thing is the food must be good.
The main thing is the food must be good. It's not enough for the business to go viral. The food has to be good. I've eaten here twice. The first time, I brought my wife, and now I bring my friends. For the price, it is suitable, and the food tastes good.
Azrin says he hopes his experience can inspire others affected by the pandemic to seek out new sources of income.
Embrace the challenge and never give up, and always look forward. Do not look backward, always go forward. It's like flying the aircraft, we always move forward. Same goes to any other occupation. When you go for your first job, you start from zero, and then we need to learn until where you are now.
Although he's no longer flying, he believes nothing can hold him back, not even a global pandemic.
And that's all on the program. See you next week, God's willing. I'm Bukola Joe Oketumbi.